For anyone that was not here when we started this evening, my name is Samantha Scholes. I'm the managing editor of the Mount Vernon News. I'm with Marty Tracy, editor of KnoxPages.com, and we'll be asking questions of our Republican mayoral candidates this evening. Again, if anyone has their cell phone with them, we ask that you silence those so that we're not disturbed throughout the debate. So without further ado, please help me welcome Republican candidates for mayor Mike Hillier and Matt Starr. Again, we'll start this debate with 3-minute opening statements. Candidates drew some numbers to figure out who was going to get us started. Mr. Hillier, you'll start us off. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you for everybody who attended. Thank you to the press for having us. I really appreciate being able to do this in public. For those who don't know me, and I think there's a large number in the room that do know me, I am Mike Hillier, otherwise my mother puts it Michael P. Hillier. Born and raised right here in Mount Vernon. I'm married to Terry Hillier, who's worked at the health department for 24 years. We live right in the city of Mount Vernon, right on East Sugar Street. I call it the heart of Mount Vernon. We've lived in the city of Mount Vernon for 33 married years. We have a son, Justin, who lives in Cincinnati with our 3 grandchildren and his wife. I've been on city council for 10 years. I've been chair of police and fire, planning and zoning, budget and finance. Prior to council, when I got started, when I got the taste for this, I sat in on the zoning commission board, and that's where I really got an interest. I represented Mount Vernon at monthly dilapidated building meetings, planning commission, regional planning. I'm a board member of the Heritage Center Association downtown, an ambassador of Chamber of Commerce, on and on, parking company. I'm also the guy that when they wanted to change the speed limit on High Street, I walked High Street, talked to the residents from Park Street, clear up to the top of the hill and back. Everybody that was home on 2 days to see if they wanted to change the speed limit. The same guy went to Greer Street and asked those residents what they thought about changing the parking to one side. Why I'm running for mayor is some of those same reasons. I still want to represent the people of Mount Vernon. I love Mount Vernon. I love a lot of things about it, but you wouldn't be running for a position if you didn't want to see some things changes, and I want to see some changes. My experience, I feel, can help with those changes, whether it's in finances, planning, dilapidated buildings. I'm not going to get into a lot of that in a lot of detail right now. I'm sure there'll be some questions here in a little bit. We have, when it comes to planning, we need a whole plan. We don't need a plan for today and worry about traffic tomorrow. We need to talk about the whole plan. Finances, it's not just for today. It's like your wallet, my wallet. You got to worry about tomorrow as well. You got to plan for the future. I'm running out of time here, so I'm going to wrap it up real quick. The reason I know so many of you people in here is because I've worked for you for 10 years. Not only just for city council, but downtown, Chamber of Commerce, and many other events. I've always answered every phone call, and I plan on doing the same thing in the future. Thank you.
Mr. Starr, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Before I thank anybody else, I want to thank my wife, because spouses are always often the last to be thanked. So my wife, Joanne, is here in the audience. I also want to thank Sarah Lynn Kerr, who is my communications manager, Brittany Whitney, who's my treasurer. It's great to have a vibrant team around this mission of me running for mayor. Thanks also to the Mount Vernon News, Knox Pages, and the Mount Vernon Public Library for putting this function together. And what a turnout tonight! I mean, this is tremendous. I am excited. It's nice to see so many people out here and involved in the political process. I remember 10 years ago, I was a downtown manager. I had started Icon Video Production, but I was also moonlighting as the Heritage Center Association downtown manager. And it was about this time of the year when then I was working with, some of you may remember, Clint Compton, who was the executive director for the Area Development Foundation. We worked very closely with our Economic Restructuring Committee and worked with council, worked with other members of the business community in passing a community reinvestment area legislation for the Central Business District. And I'm sitting in the library at the Alcove Restaurant having a conversation with Debbie Urton, who was my neighbor to the south of us on South Main Street at my business. And we're going over how the downtown is starting to improve and how we just had the streetscape and, you know, we're bouncing back. The market's shifting, but we're going to be okay. There are people that are making headway and making things happen. We're getting more volunteers. And she looked at me and said, "You need to run for mayor." That was 10 years ago. It was a seed that was planted. And I said, "Why do you say that?" She says, "Well, you come from education. You've taught in education. You're a coach at Kenyon. You worked in healthcare." And so I said, "Debbie, hold on. Am I to enter government and go for the bureaucratic trifecta?" To which we both laughed, of course. But that was a seed that was planted because I became intimately familiar with the partnerships and the relationships that it takes to run a city. It's not government, it's people. That's why I'm running for mayor, because I see how important relationships are and how an entrepreneurial approach in broadening those relationships are going to help us plan for the future. And man, I'm excited. I am really excited to be living in Mount Vernon today. And I ask for your vote May 5th. Thank you.
Current administration has been buying property along Sandusky Street for a widening project that's expected to help eliminate truck traffic in downtown and in residential areas. If you make it through the primary and you're elected in the fall, is this a project that you would continue and why? Mr. Starr, you have 2 minutes.
I think the widening State Route 13 is certainly something that is a state route, and it's something that, or Sandusky Street, if that becomes 13 or whatever, that is a state route, and we need to embrace that because our business needs today, we just saw it happening today, a huge piece of equipment going through town. The easier we can make it for Siemens or whatever corporation may inhabit that building in the future to continue to conduct commerce is going to be important for us to do. So the TIF district or widening of that to make commerce happen, I think is a very good investment because those are the kind of jobs that we want to have here. That's the kind of stability that we want to have here. And I see it as a win-win.
Mr. Hillier?
Thank you. We purchased property. I think the first piece of property was a condo building, Connell's Furniture right in a curve. It became available at a good price. That's when some of the ideas were starting to come out on the table. One of the first things I'd like to see, and of course it all comes with money, where's your main project going to be? I think one of the better improvements that could happen sooner than later would be putting in a left turn lane if you're heading north on 13 next to the old Mazza building. Everybody knows the rooms there. I've asked numerous times in the past, since we've widened it with Mazza's, we bought the building on the left there on the corner, if that can't be done. And I think as a quick fix for some of the problem would be to be able to put a turn lane in there. Of course, then you're looking at stoplights, you involve the state. Matt mentioned TIF district. Yes, we just named out a TIF district, I believe in the last little over a year ago. And the TIF district only brings money in from the commercial businesses, not residential. And it's awful nice, just like projects on Coshocton Avenue, that you take money out of that TIF district rather than out of the general fund or the other taxes. That's the taxes that come just from that area to develop that area. A priority other than that, we have a lot of traffic problems around Mount Vernon. I'm not sure if that's just the only one. There's also talk of a bridge in the future across Sandusky Street. Not everything you can talk about is going to happen in the next 1 to 4 years. The bridge project was actually talked maybe in the next 20. And we all know projects have talked in the past that have never happened. That's because everything keeps changing in the middle. But I would like to see a turn lane as a possibility in the near future on 13.
Any rebuttal, Mr. Starr?
I think anything that I would add would just, it seems like we actually agree on that issue pretty well. So anything more would be ad nauseum. We'll just move on.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Hillier, in your 10 years on City Council, you have perhaps been one of the most vocal, raising questions about, yes, dilapidated buildings. You already alluded to that. Can the mayor do any more to address this issue, like pushing for financial penalties?
Thank you. We have ordinances written in the city of Mount Vernon for a reason. The ordinance is called a law. And one thing John Booth said on City Council, one thing I'll always remember, John Booth, as president, said, John and I didn't agree on everything, but he says you have ordinance for a reason. If you don't follow them, get rid of them. We have Joel Daniels doing a good job now, but we still don't follow some of the ordinances where it's written. I can show you for the last 10 years, some of the same people we've dealt with over and over and over. I can take you to a property on the east side of Mount Vernon that we are dealing with yet today, and we still get an excuse that, well, this has changed, now we're gonna have this guy's gonna sell it, and it's the same junk and the same woods that I've talked to you about numerous times. Yes, the administration plays a huge part in that. And one of the things we can do is we can take some of these repeat offenders and bring them in, work with the city law director. Our past city law director, I haven't had much of a chance to work with Rob. Our past city law director and I were going to get some great things done. We did it while he was still there. The administration plays a huge part in this. And if we clean up some of these properties and take care of them where the ordinance is written, we're going to save money in doing it. I think, yes, some people deserve a little longer chance than the other. Nobody deserves 10 years. I can show you I can show you minutes from 2008 where 100 North Main Street was condemned. Now we got a red circle around it, and it's no longer on the books as an issue. A red circle means the fire department won't even go in the building. That needs addressed, and yes, the administration can do that. Thank you.
Mr. Starr, same question. What can be done to reduce dilapidated buildings?
Well, I think as mayor, the mayor's role is not to create legislation, it's to enforce the legislation. And so the ordinances that are in place, it's the mayor's job to make sure that that's done. I think also it may be time for a fresh approach. We have this fallacy in our thinking sometimes that the threat of punishment is going to deter behavior, when in fact history has taught us otherwise. And so maybe it's time to reach out. Let's see, okay, what can we do? And I think one of the things that is really exciting for Mount Vernon and Knox County is it's a community development block grant that is recently in the works. And so that is going to allow attention given to perhaps some of these dilapidated buildings or properties. That's not going to be limited to a street or a neighborhood. It's going to be able to go beyond and serve a greater geographic region of our city. And that's the power of partnerships. When you reach out and broaden relationships, there are a lot more things that can happen. So I think maybe it's time to reach out and let's talk to some of these property owners. Come on, let's see, what can we do? What do you need? What can we do? We want to clean up the neighborhood. We want to improve life for everybody here.
Any rebuttal, Mike?
Yes. I was told by a landlord, these people got to live somewhere, so they might as well live with me. I have such bad tenants, I got to collect rent every week. I rented to a murderer and bragged about it. We have great landlords, and not all bad properties belong to landlords. But yet, some people we need to say, this is the law. It's been 10 years, it's been 8 years, it's been 7 years. Do like the Knox County Health Department does when you have junk in your woods. You follow the law. They don't follow it, the next step's take them to court. They don't deal with properties for 8 years. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hiawatha Water Park and Pool continues to lose money. In 2014, it suffered a net loss of over $108,000, plus the debt service that the city pays. Do you have a strategy to make the pool affordable to the average family and reduce overall costs to the taxpayers? Mr. Starr.
Yeah, this is a fun question right now, because the pool season is just about among us, and we're going to see an influx of people there. Now, at the heart of the Hiawatha Water Park, I have heard two very differing opinions on what the purpose of that water park is all about. On one hand, it is something that has been developed as a jewel in our community and needs to be run almost business-like so that we're at least breaking even. On the other hand, I've heard this is part of the general parks system, and it should be affordable to everybody. The other parks, we don't charge admission. We have to charge admission and operations for the pool because of so many hard costs, obviously. So there are differing opinions on the purpose of what the water park is all about. Oddly enough, when I talk to, I've been spending a lot of time with 20-somethings, the millennials, and asked them this very question. And These guys are saying now that they're starting to have families, oh gosh, you got to have that break even. You got to have that break even. It shouldn't be subsidized. It shouldn't be subsidized. On the other hand, you don't want to cut off the opportunity for other people to do it. What you all received in the mail today, though, is what is the first step in a new approach, and that is marketing. That is advertising, because it went out today in full form. If you see that big yellow cardboard thing, paper thing that came in your mail, man, I'm excited to think about the summer. So advertising has to be a part of that. Process improvement, analyzing the costs, and trusting your managers to come up with ideas that are going to make that succeed.
Thank you. Mr. Hillier.
Thank you. The only difference in that piece of advertisement you got today compared to the past few years, it was big, hard, and on two sides on shiny and cost more money. We used to send a pamphlet out that cost a lot less, said the same thing. With that being said, I was the one that brought it to light more than once. We have lost money on that water park since day one. I was part of the planning committee. I voted for the debt of $277,000 a year for 20 years for the city of Mount Vernon to have a nice water park. I voted for that debt. We currently have 12 years to pay it off. I thought the number was $106,000. I'll deal with the $106,000 to $108,000 loss this year. I was the one that said, how many times do you have to ask to have a committee meeting to stop and look at what we're doing? We currently charge, I believe, $7 for after a certain age to get in the pool. I don't think you'll see that change in maybe the next year or two, but what we can do, I'd like to see it come more back to council after the recreation board. We had a meeting that we asked, this is what we'd like to see you look at. And I thought it was going to come from the recreation board back to council where we would discuss it further. There were some ideas there that we could cut costs, such as, we're staying open for Labor Day, but we also have to keep that pool open for 2 weeks after we go back to school, heat it, put chemicals in it, and those type of things, that there's a money savings right there. I think when you lose $106,000, $1,179 a day for 3 months, if you're in business, you're not going to last long. We're very fortunate. We had a good tax base this year, so we put $106,000 in it to make it even. When we built the pool, we all had the idea, based on Heath, Coshocton, and I believe Ashland, that pool was going to pay for itself and the debt. I think we need to sit down at the table with people, maybe it's young people like my son who's got a master's in statistics, and pool operators, and say, what are we doing wrong? What do we need to look at? We've got to try something different. Thank you.
Any rebuttal, Mr. Starr?
I think the only thing that I can add to this is, again, it's looking at sales, pricing structure, a much different decision-making model than governmental decision-making. This is a sales. This is promotions, advertising. This is right up my alley. This is what I do. This is my livelihood, and I think it's that approach that's going to pull us into the black.
Thank you.
Mr. Hillier, what can city government do, if anything, to effectively pursue more private sector jobs for our community?
We have Steve Weir's the area of development. We have our Chamber of Commerce. They both have what they need to do when employment asks to come to Mount Vernon. We have, one of the things when you look at jobs coming to a city, first thing you do is look at the population around it, whether or not it can support the jobs they need, the jobs they need to fill. We have a problem here. You hear Ariel advertising all over the state of Ohio, trying to hire people. You look at Gerald Wen out there, has a sign, I don't think that sign's taken down all year round, that they're hiring. I think one of the things we have to do, and I don't quote Governor Kasich very often, but one of the things we have to do is we need to look at, not everybody has, like myself, I didn't go to college. I went to a career center. I was going to build houses all my life like my dad till he had a blizzard and a laid carpet, but that's another story. But we need to get people excited about working, going to Gerald Wen for $11 an hour, starting at the ground floor and working there 30 years and having a great retirement. We have to look at, we have jobs here that we need to fill, and how we can fill those, as well as bring other. It's nice to bring employment into Mount Vernon, don't get me wrong. And we have to work with those people that do employment pieces, such as area development and the people he contacts. But we also have to be able to fill those jobs when you bring them here. And we have to have nice housing for people if they move to Mount Vernon to work there. It's one big picture. It's not just bringing a job. You have to, it's like everything else. There's a bigger picture around it.
Mr. Starr?
One of the first questions that businesses will ask when they're thinking of locating to expand their business is, how is the school system? That's the number one question that they ask. The next question that they ask is, what is your downtown like? Because they know when the schools and the nucleus of the city does well, the rest of the community does well. So in that spirit of developing jobs or bringing jobs to the community, there are many people who are making a difference right now outside of government, and what is important is that all of us can continue to make Mount Vernon a wonderful place to live, work, and play. And in doing that, Mike mentioned the Area Development Foundation. They're in charge of bringing big industry to the area. The Knox County Chamber of Commerce is doing a phenomenal job in taking care of the business base right now. This morning, they had a wonderful, wonderful presentation at HR Connections called Managing Multiple Generations. It's just one of the benefits that your Chamber of Commerce provides you. The Heritage Center Association is also geared toward the downtown development. They are making things attractive for retailers to locate and offer jobs and shopping and experiences and more activity altogether. And the last thing that I would do is ask people. What entrepreneurial spirit is alive and well, and we're on a population boom where that spirit is going to be, it's ready to take off. Technology is changing faster than ever, and so I think mom and pop shops or garage businesses are going to start, and then they're going to expand rather quickly. And I think we need to embrace that. It's exciting to be alive right now. It really is.
Mr. Hillier, any rebuttal?
Not so much a rebuttal, but just to tag on to what Matt said. When you talk about the city schools, if you haven't met Bill Cedar, our new superintendent, I call him new, but I think he's been here over a year now. He's an exciting person. He's exciting for our schools. I think you're going to see more and more improvement. He's involved city council. We met, city council's always met with the school board in the past, but also now with Mr. Cedar, we also have now committees that have met with some of their people. They now have the free luncheon twice a year for the senior citizens. And when you talk about schools, yeah, it's a big part. We now have, not that our past superintendents, but we have new blood out there. And he's excited to be around kids. He's excited what's going to happen with Mount Vernon City Schools.
So kind of as a follow-up then, you both are saying it's not really government's responsibility to find jobs. It's, Matt, that's kind of what I got from how you answered.
I think we make it attractive for businesses to first stay here and then locate here by supporting the people who are experts in that area.
Marty, when I worked with people with disabilities at New Hope Industries for 10 years, and my job was in employment, it might not have been my job to find a job for somebody in Licking County, but if I heard about a job in Licking County, I made that phone call. So if I think there's something out there and I can't quite put my grasp on it, I'm going to make phone calls. Yeah, I'm going to look for jobs. You can't run a city of Mount Vernon without having a tax base. So as many jobs as we can get. I always said, it may not be my job, but if I can help you, I will.
Ditto.
Okay, thank you.
I had to squeeze that in.
Over the last few years, the Mount Vernon News has covered several issues regarding issues with city employees. Some purchased items for personal use on city accounts, some admitted to stealing city property. There was one that filed fraudulent certification documents with the state of Ohio, and one that was certainly abusing powers in high-ranking positions. In most of those cases, the current administration has allowed those individuals to resign or retire without any repercussions. As mayor, how would you handle such personnel issues? Mr. Starr.
Well, on the football team, we call this cancer. You cut it out. You have to be held accountable to a standard. As government employees, you have to be held accountable to a higher standard because you are entrusted with taxpayers' dollars and the vision of the future. That's an investment, and any abuse of power just diminishes and undermines that mission. And so how I would handle it is holding people accountable and getting somebody else in there that is going to be able to get the job done as best as possible. Training, communications, maybe even some micromanaging. I'm not above micromanaging. If it's called for it, I'll step in and do it just to make sure that things are going to have to get done. I don't like to do that. That's not my disposition, but I'm willing to hop in there and do it. And you have to develop your other people. And with that is bringing back some of the sparkle, some of the recognition. You see good performance, you recognize it, you praise it, and you move on. But creating something that is artificial, like it may not be popular with everybody, but we have like employee of the month, employee of the year, that's considered by workers as pure politics. Because if it were truly based on performance, the same 1 or 2 employees would get it every time. So while isolating the bad things that are going on, providing lavish support for those who are doing a good job would be how I would handle it.
So are you opposed to firing?
Absolutely not. I've fired people in the past. It's part of the job.
Mr. Hillier, same question.
I was involved in some of those, as you well know. And I was that guy asking questions, as you well know. The mayor sits here, and everything that happens below comes back to the mayor. I've said it more than once. And he's the go-to guy. One of the things I found out that Mount Vernon lacks is a lot in, is policies and procedures. I think you know that as well. I'll just give you a couple good examples. Jay Manor ran for mayor 4 years ago. When Jay got off city council, he was working on, he wanted an ordinance written that we'd have to do inventory. That was after the stealing that went on. And I took it over when Jay left. So it's been 4 years. All right, I was asked that we didn't make it an ordinance because an ordinance is a law. They wanted to make it a policy. And the administration asked to write a policy that inventory be done by June every year. And by every department head. And by June every year, city council would get a copy of those inventories. I've not seen one. I think our past chief of police is sitting back there, and he was in the mayor's office one day, and he says, I have my 70-page inventory. You want to see it? And I said, no, just have, and the administration was standing there. I said, no, just put them all on the counter. Why waste the paper and send them to all the council? Put them all on the counter and call us. If we want to come see them, they're out here to see. Policies and procedures. We all have them. Everybody works. If you work for somebody, if we don't have them in the city of Mount Vernon, we have to write them. And everybody has to be aware of them. When I worked in management for New Hope Industries, I was there for 8 years in management, sometimes up to 130 people. My boss told me when I complained about somebody, she said one thing, Mike, there's 2 employees, the one you want to keep and the one you got to get rid of. And the one you want to get rid of, you got to work 5 times harder. And you can't do it if you don't have policies and procedures. We have good people working in the city of Mount Vernon. We've made some lapses, and we need to get back on our feet. Thank you.
Any rebuttal?
No, I think we covered that pretty well.
Thank you.
This week, the Knox County Grand Jury issued indictments on 17 drug cases, including the alleged sale of drugs on East High Street. There was a man busted who lives on Pleasant Street, and it's alleged that his residence is a meth lab. What should the city be doing to eradicate the illegal drug trade in Mount Vernon? And who's A?
Mr.
Me.
Hillier.
Mr. Hillier, please.
It's hard to acquaint me with an A, isn't it?
Yeah.
You do what I've been doing. You do what my neighbors have been doing. You report everything you can report. We have a big drug problem. We're no different than anybody else. We finally started talking about it about a year ago live on city council meetings. A good example, I live on Sugar Street. If I see somebody walking down the street instead of walking down the sidewalks, I watch them. Do you know why they're walking down the street, not on the sidewalks? There's a good chance they're looking in the windows of your cars. Everything you can watch. You can't walk down the sidewalk and look in a car. You can walk down the street there and walk over to a car much easier. We need to be aware of everything we do. We also, need to be aware of where people are living. Landlords, not all landlords are bad landlords, I'll say it again. But when you say I have such bad tenants, I gotta collect rent once a week, who are they hiding from? We can ask our landlords to step up a little bit. We can ask property owners to step up a little bit. We can do everything we can to support our police department and our sheriff's department. When we toured the jail about a year ago, I got the tour about the 911. They told us over 90% of the people in the jail had some kind of relationship to drugs, one way or another. They told me that when a person got out of jail after 11 months, hadn't touched heroin for 11 months, they followed him. In 20 minutes, they took a hit. This came from Sheriff Schaefer. We have problems. You need to educate, educate, educate. We have a chief of police who's doing it now. He came to council, he started. I'd like to put our chief of police out there as much as we can, informing the public. You have to be aware of what's going on around you. We also have a resource officer in the school, and I think you're going to see, there's going to be some good things coming out of that as well. But you have to be very aware, and the administration has to support them with everything we got.
Matt?
I had a feeling you were going to ask that question. Law enforcement is getting drugs off the street. They're getting drugs off the street all the time. And this is beyond a law enforcement issue. Of course, we can continue to throw more money and more police, more cruisers, more resources at detecting and punishing, or we can start looking at preventing and treating and taking care of the people who really want a chance of getting off of drugs. I think we need to help our law enforcement community out as much as possible. How many of you, just in the room, how many of you attended the KSAT Operation Street Smart, Knox Substance Abuse Action Team that they had? What an incredible public education forum that was. I want to see more of those. As mayor, I'm going to reach out and make sure that we can inundate our public with educational opportunities, because information is power. And every study shows that an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of detection. And study after study shows that if you provide early intervention, you educate at an early age, predictably, there will be far fewer individuals who will go down that bad decision-making path. For those people who want a chance to get better, we have a 3-day detox program at Knox Community Hospital, which is experiencing success. People from other communities are coming in to do that. The problem is what they have to go through at that point is either outpatient through the Freedom Center or at behavioral health. There's no in-depth 3-week rewire our brains. So if we have that in our community, that's an opportunity that we can care for and reestablish relationships to support the economy, to support the business community, and provide the human resources that they need.
Any rebuttal?
Thank you.
Mike?
It can't be just local. We have to have support, not only Knox County, Ohio, around the nation. A lot of this is flowing right out of Florida, and nobody's doing anything about it. Remember the guy that took the hit 20 minutes after he got out of jail? He was rehabbed for 11 months. They're addicted to it. We've got to stop the flow getting here and getting to other people. They're addicted to it.
Here's a kind of a strange question, but let's just throw this out there anyway. If money is no object, what's your ideal vision for the future of Mount Vernon, Mr. Starr?
Wow. Shrek lives. How about that? A swamp or a wetland in every property, as they politically would say. I think if money was no object, we would be investing it where we're bleeding right now, and that's drugs. I mean, we can go back to drugs, and we can continue to go down and throwing money into detection and punishment. But we're going to have to start building more prisons, because we just can't keep up with it. And I fear that we're only getting the tip of the iceberg, because drug culture they're extremely good capitalists, and we have to be better at it than they are. If money were no object, I think, boy, you just got me excited with that one, Sam. I would have a fully functioning arts council right now that would harness all of the artistic opportunities to expand on what we're doing to provide limitless entertainment opportunities for people in Mount Vernon and Knox County. That's something other than sports. Sports are great, but there are other things that are of interest. I would see agriculture as another area where I'd like to see some development, experimental, vertical gardenings. I would like to see some innovation. I would like to see a communication. Can you imagine City Hall connected with the educational institutions around the community, with the Woodward, with the Memorial Theater, with the public library, and all of us having an electronic Skype meeting? That's not that far off, and with a little bit more resources, we could probably make that happen in a year. Talk about getting people involved in the political process and reaching out to a younger generation. Man, let's do it.
Mr. Hillier.
Pass. That's a tough one. I mean, if anybody knows me, I take my job pretty serious. It doesn't matter whether I'm taping boxes of pack mail or mowing the grass. I take it serious. The road's got to be straight. So to say if money's no object, what would you do? Probably continue throwing money at some of the projects we're doing now and not caring. I really don't. I don't think that way. I really have a hard time answering that. I'd probably still save some money somehow, just in case somebody does say, well, money's an object now, what are you going to do? I mean, it's all a fantasy. I don't know. It's pass.
Leave that to me.
Well, thank you very much for indulging me with that conversation.
Matt, in your speech when you announced you were running for mayor, you said that you were talking about, and you just did a moment ago, about involving young people in our community. And are you talking about young people getting involved in the just voting, or what? What do you mean by that? And why is it important? Obviously, they're young, but don't they have other things they're thinking about?
This is fresh from the Chamber of Commerce seminar this morning, Managing Multiple Generations. When you manage multiple generations, you combine strength and wisdom. Now, the millennials that are coming up, they are a strange bunch of people because they have to be asked to do everything. And that's partly our problem because we created that, and all 8 of their grandparents. So it takes a little while to do the math there, I understand. But anyway, asking. When I ask people, when I made this decision to get out, I started meeting with small groups of 20-somethings and asking them what's important to them. One of the number one things is there's nothing to do in Mount Vernon. I said, well, hold on, tell me about it. What would you like to do in Mount Vernon? Music scene was number one, like entertainment, without necessarily having to go to a bar. Okay. I said, are you familiar with the Dan Emmett Music and Arts Festival? Are you familiar with MTV Arts? Are you familiar with 4-H? Are you familiar with the Mount Vernon Players? Are you familiar with the Alcove Theater? Are you familiar with Orange Barrel Productions? No. Why not? Well, nobody asked me. So we have to look at this. Well, is it our job to entertain you by spoon-feeding you everything? I think we got to do a little bit about that in bridging that gap and bringing resources together. But it's not just voting. Although that's certainly a starting point, but also getting involved in the chamber, getting involved in churches, getting involved in the Heritage Center Association, volunteering, starting a company, starting an entertainment venue, getting off your rear ends and getting out in the community and relating to people, putting the phone down and get away from this FOMA, fear of missing out. Our brains are not wired that way. Our brains are meant to connect with each other. That's how we are designed. So put the phone down, get the guitar out, and entertain, connect with people, and ask them. Ask them to do it.
Mr. Hillier, what about these young people?
I'm still young.
Me too.
Aren't we, Marty?
You're older than me by a few months.
Marty and I graduated together, so you know how old I am. No. I think, and many of you heard me say this, if you want to get the kids involved, the parents, parents are first. You know, how many times have you heard, if you want to see what the problem is with a child, look at the parents first. When I coached baseball, one of the things that ticked me off the most is you had parents drop them off, it's going to rain in 10 minutes, and they leave. You got my kid for 2 hours, you figure out what to do with him, and I don't care if it's going to storm. I took over Cub Master, I think it was called, at St. Vincent's. It was many moons ago. My son was in preschool, kindergarten. I had to take over the program, we're going to lose it. I sat down with about 40 parents, 40 kids, all different ages, all the way up through in the Boy Scouts. I said, here's the deal. Any one of you think you're not coming back next week, don't bring your child. I says, I need every one of you to be involved. If you can't come to the meetings, I want to know what you're going to do. The parents is where we have to get back to. I live on Sugar Street, like I said. How many kids do you think walk to school to Pleasant Street by themselves, regardless of the age? You can say whatever you want to about kids. We got to work on the parents. And those parents had parents the same way. And so we got whatever we can do, one or two at a time, whatever it is. And we have some very good programs, and we got to support all we can and get involved in those. But you got to get the parents involved, then you'll get the kids. I never went to work on a ball field with my son. I coached him since he was 5. I never went if I didn't look at him and says, I'm not doing this for me, come on. And he works, he does the same thing with his kids. We got to get back with the parents, we got to get the parents working.
Thank you.
Recently, City Council had some lively discussions about annexation with the Beckett property. We can kind of expect the same thing with the impending, for lack of a better word, annexation of the PPG property. Can you talk about what your views are on annexation? We can start with Mr. Hillier.
The Beckett property out off of Gilcrest and Route 36, Upper Gilcrest, Route 36, was what they call annexation type 2. We're basically forced annexation. Due to the type of annexation it is, I was told by voting no, and I think Mr. Farrer was as well, if council voted it down, we could probably be sued. Most likely Bill would be sued for not allowing the annexation in Mount Vernon. What we could have did was turn down the zoning. And I voted no against the zoning. And I voted no against it because of the plan we have for it. We had 12 acres of general business that sits right across from hospice. And if anybody drives back and forth to Apple Valley or in that area, that's the last place you can pass before you get to Apple Valley, the first place you can pass when you're coming to Mount Vernon. It's a dead zone. We're going to grow. And one of the things I said to Planning Commission after they voted for it, one of the Planning Commission members said, I would really like to see things go west of town, but I know everybody wants to be on Shock now, so I got to vote for it. And I said, as long as you vote yes, we'll be in Gambier, and we'll never go to the west side. And that's some of the things you got to talk about planning when you look at traffic as well. The other thing we can do when we talk about annexation, the city of Mount Vernon, to approve a plan such as the Beckett property, and I asked it that night of our city engineer, they can ask 2 things. Route 36 can be developed where they want to turn into that general business, and also Upper Gilcrest can be developed where they want to do the residential. That way it doesn't come back on the taxpayers. It comes back on the developer first. And I think those are some of the things we have to start enforcing. When they built the condos on Upper Gilcrest Road, one of the things was supposed to happen was Upper Gilcrest Road was supposed to be developed. But they didn't develop it first. And one of the developers became ill, they split up, the project went defunct. Upper Gilcrest still sits there the same way it is today. So there's things that can be done even though you're forced to annex. And we're probably going to look at that as well with Foundation Park, but I'm running out of time.
Mr. Starr.
Type 2 annexation is a strange beast. As Mike said, it's forced annexation, if you will. But the state of Ohio has said, you know, as landowners, as property owners, you have rights. And if your property aligns with the city, you have a right to petition to become part of the city. It's unlawful to deny you access to do that. So be it. That's the state law, okay? So when these properties come in, we embrace them. I would embrace them because that's our future. The city has a lot of resources that we're eager to share with anybody who wants to be a part of us. And I think we have to embrace those. The power that we have in looking at growth and balancing that green space that we so preciously just love around here is in regional planning, but zoning board is who really holds the power in making sure that it's going to fit in with our comprehensive plan. And we have a comprehensive plan of Knox County that is something that is, man, everybody should be taking a look at that every so often, because all of these issues with annexation and green space are critical. I think when we look at developing on the west end, now that we've got an investment in aerial foundation park, and we're going to be able to access that off of Harcourt Road, when all pistons are firing and we're seeing 3,000 to 5,000 people in that park every day, guess where I want to be as a business owner? Guess where I want to open up a bicycle rental shop? Guess where I want to open up a fishing rental shop? Guess where I want to open up a restaurant? And the water and wastewater is already there. So that decision, fortunately, the city council has made that determination, and that's going to pay off in the future, particularly when that park is in full swing.
Final question before your closing
my rebuttal?
statements. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, Marty. Focus 2100 did not include the development where it is in Monroe Town, in the township that was annexed into Mount Vernon. It did not include the general business where it is on Route 36. As far as the annexation of Foundation Park, we can have, I assume they'll be able to force annexation like they did everything else. I wish they wouldn't. We'll probably have forced annexation type 2. But you know what? The city of Mount Vernon doesn't have to take ownership. And I'll fight the ownership because I'm not sure how much money it's going to take care of it.
We have one more question before your final statements. If you succeed in winning the primary, what is your strategy to campaign against Mayor Mavis?
I don't know who
Mr. Starr, you can go first.
You would have to make me go first, wouldn't you? Well, I got it. I'm not tempting fate because I have to win a primary first. So I'm not going to do that. And so all of my efforts at this point have been geared toward that. I thought about challenging him to one-on-one at Memorial Park. He just had both knees replaced, and I think I could take him. Straight up to 10, no three-pointers. That's it. If that doesn't work, maybe a karaoke contest. I'm not exactly sure. No, the city's been well served by Mayor Mavis. That doesn't necessarily mean that they can't be better served in the future. 20 years in office is a long time, and I look forward to providing a new generation of leadership.
Mike?
Well, for one, I'd keep my campaign chair, who's my wife. So that would be the first thing, and thank you to her. But with that being said, I think Mayor Mavis is probably going to read the paper, might even get this tape, so he knows a good bit of what the game plan is, regardless which one of us wins. Mayor Mavis, like he said, has been mayor for 20 years. I read Fred Laurie wrote the history of Knox County in 1970. He mentioned Richard Mavis as county commissioner in 1970. For over 42 years he's been in politics. He's done some real good things. But I also think in 42 years in politics, 20 years in mayor, we need to look at it, whether it's Matt, whether it's me. There's another set of eyes. It doesn't hurt. A little bit of change. I hate to use the word change. We all wore that out a little while ago. But it doesn't hurt to get some new feet on the floor and look at things a little different. And in 10 years on city council, I think Mayor Mavis pretty much knows what my plan is if I happen to get him. And I have a very good opponent right here, and I wish him well. Matt and I are good friends. Not that, we're okay. About like my one brother.
There's no love lost there, buddy.
I see Matt about every day, so it doesn't make this easy. But no, I don't think there'll be any surprises.
Okay,
Thank you. We'll go into closing statements now. Mr. Starr, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you. Again, thanks, Samantha, Marty, for the Mount Vernon News for organizing. This has been a lot of fun. I can't remember when the last time I had this much fun was Shrek. So being able to participate in the political process, there's just something endearing about this. We have a rich history in our community. And anytime, I know those of you who go and travel to other communities, you can tell when a community appreciates their history, because it's in looking back and knowing what we have today that tells us how we need to move to the future. And this is an exciting time to be alive in Mount Vernon, like I said before. We are on the cusp of things that are going on nationally with the population boom. We are faced with issues of drugs that we can and will overcome with the right resources and the right talent, and pooling and partnering with and broadening relationships with other people like never before. We have a young population that is going to be entering the workforce. They already are. They're going to be looking for homes. We need more families here. And so reaching out and providing opportunities for these young people to settle down here and not in New Albany or in Columbus or any place else like that is what we need to do. And as the mayor, there's only so much you can do directly with that, but you always have to be an ambassador. You're an ambassador to the community. No matter where you are, you're always on. And that's my sweet spot. That and managing people. For my career, I have always been in management and administration, and it is what I enjoy doing. I have no desire to create legislation, although I look forward to working with City Council on that. And I'm excited. I'm not going anywhere either. I'm going to be around no matter what. So no matter what the outcome is, hey, I'll be back. That's how I show my love.
Mr. Hillier.
Thank you. I want to, real brief, you've sat here long enough. I appreciate your patience. We sit here and I look, and I don't think anybody fell asleep. That's wonderful. If you haven't known what I've done in 10 years on council, I'll give you a little funny what happened in the last meeting. Had a council person come up to me at the last meeting and said, well, if you're elected mayor, who's going to ask all the questions? And I said, well, hopefully we won't have as many. And two, I guess you might have to ask more. My job as elected mayor is not to put out more questions, but put out more information. For 10 years, I've represented the people in the city of Mount Vernon fairly, honestly, and openly. If I'm elected mayor, I still plan on being that guy that walks down High Street, talks to the people, asks them what their problem is. I may not have the freedom I do right now to do it. I still plan on being the same Mike Hillier that he elected for city council 10 years ago, and I thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Pat.
I would like to thank our candidates for the preparation and their participation in tonight's debate, the library staff and the Friends of the Library for their hospitality, for Marty, Tracy, and Knox Pages for partnering with the Mount Vernon News for tonight's debate. But mostly I want to thank all of you for attending, because this is a great crowd. You've been very cordial and listening to our candidates and, of course, laughing appropriately when we have been entertained. But thank you for coming and being involved in the political process. It's really heartwarming to see that there are so many people that want to be involved and wanted to learn what these folks all had to say tonight. So thank you very much for coming out.